Satire, a literary work holding up human vices and follies to ridicule or scorn. It is a way of making a political judgment in a playful, humorous way. In today's media, satire and satirical shows such as South Park, The Colbert Report with Stephen Colbert, and The Daily Show with Jon Stewart have all spiked the interest in satire throughout the nation and around the world, and have become an increasingly popular source for political news.
Google debate. Following, of course, the previous week's CNN Tea Party debate, MSNBC Reagan Library debate, the History Channel Civil War Recreationist debate, the Tron debate, the Are You Afraid of the Dark debate, and the Don't Tell Rick Santorum We're Canceling the Debate.
With the popularity growing among Americans today, an assumption has been formed that satire is a new idea of this time period. In fact, since 2007, more 18 to 49-year-olds have watched The Daily Show nightly, more than any other late-night program. However, I argue that the origin of satire is not of new development and has continually been created specifically for its corresponding time period. It has a long history that has evolved from a variety of genres many centuries ago, including several plays and novels. More particularly, we will concentrate on local satirical works from the University of Wisconsin-Madison from the 20th century, The Sphinx and the Octopus, and how they are important and valuable precursors to the progression of satire and the current local phenomenon, The Onion. But first, why has satire's effect on the media changed, and why has there been such a fad with satire in the last decade?
There's really just a lot more content and a lot more choice and a lot of things to make sense of. And I think if you look at that as the backdrop for some of these satire and comedy programs, one of the things that they offer is a bit of perspective. They're always, a lot of the time, they're commenting on information in those other content sources and even on the norms of how they're produced and how they get made. So I think that's where they fit in.
Although satirical works are now more accessible to the public today and have become popular news sources, satire has been around for much longer. Satirical works in past centuries still contain the same roots and definition, but have each formed a different twist within the genre of writing.
Every era has had its satirists, because every era has probably needed its satirists.
And did they run into
Satire dates back to around 500 BC with Socrates, a Greek satirist. Here, satires were written in essence of comedic plays to poke fun at public affairs. From ancient comedy, the popularity has continued to travel through the decades with writings from the golden era's Jonathan Swift to discuss economic, moral, and social truths. The lineage continues with Mark Twain carrying on the writing into the 19th century with the adventures of Tom Sawyer and the adventures of Huckleberry Finn. This is when satire becomes more sociably acceptable and a more gentle form of criticism. Moving on to the 20th century, author of Animal Farm, George Orwell utilized satire by placing animals in human situations. Orwell is not only able to entertain the readers, but also accomplishes his attack on the political ideas he is criticizing. From comedic Greek plays to daily television shows, satire has become a main feature in today's society. It provides a more entertaining and interesting take on events, and it has foreshadowed the current history in the making. More particularly, with its long history, satire has a long history here on the UW campus as well. UW-Madison has been a prestigious university since Wisconsin achieved statehood in 1848. With the impressive educational history of this campus, comes along with it campus humor. The history of campus humor at the UW has a long legacy, beginning with the launch of the Sphinx in 1899, and then the Octopus from 1919 to 1959. These were newspapers that were full of satire, but did not have a universal appeal.
And other people in humor and making fun of what's going on campus, of their professors, of just sort of the world in general. They're very interesting to look at, because humor is a strange thing. You know, humor is often very topical. So if it's something that's dealing with sort of like human emotions, you know, you can usually understand that 50 years later, but if it's something that has to do with a specific person on campus or something that was happening on campus at the time, it's often much harder to understand what they're talking about. And so things often aren't funny because you don't know much of what the context is for what they're really
The Sphinx and Octopus address topics both lighthearted and controversial. Newspaper covers were also tailored to be satirical. Young artists who wanted to express themselves designed covers showing holiday events, hazing of freshmen, and observing the political election scene. On the other hand, this cartoon illustrated in The Octopus about climbing Bascom Hill seems timeless. I mean, who hasn't complained about climbing Bascom at some point in their time on campus? It helps bridge the gap between past humor and current humor. Although some jokes and cartoons make today's readers cringe, some of the past humor has stood well the test of time.
Although times change and specific situations change, that people in general don't change. So again, if you're talking about, they have cartoons about dating, or they have cartoons about, alcohol use or things like that. And things like that are pretty, you can understand that 50 or 60 years from now. And I think
Poetry, essays, satirical writings, jokes, and other works that poke fun at all aspects of campus life in The Sphinx and Octopus have played a major role in the history of campus humor. Once these then began to peter off, it wasn't until The Onion came along that a satirical newspaper was back on campus.
So I think it's carrying on a similar tradition, and the types of things that they do today in The Onion are actually sort of the same types of things that they did then.
Written by two UW students, The Onion used satire to report and unveil the truths behind many campus issues and conflicts. The Onion has continued to explode throughout the United States through print and the web in the past 2 decades, with its writers coming up with new material to entertain its audience, while becoming a well-received, humorous, and witty newspaper that not only provides local news, but also provides worldwide reports. Just as satire has made it through the centuries, The Onion has stood the test of time for the past 2 decades, continuously coming up with new material. By first knowing and understanding the history of satire, it allows us to better comprehend the satire in society and its relevance to its time period, especially on the UW-Madison campus. The Sphinx, Octopus, and Onion have all provided an inspiration and an idea path to a new form of comedic but thought-provoking entertainment. With each issue, students and staff at UW-Madison have always continued to anticipate new twists to everyday events. Despite the time differences and the inside jokes among the newspapers, they all share the same goals and strategies: to provide entertaining humor and challenging information to its audience. Satirical writing is not of new origin and is a key factor in bridging generation gaps. Today, I challenge you as students and staff of the UW to go out and discover some of UW's interesting campus humor history and history in the making, such as The Sphinx, Octopus, and Onion.